The silent departure. The Galactic Assembly Chamber floated in the void between stars, a monument to cooperation that had endured for 8 millennia. Its crystalline walls stretched across 3 miles of carefully contained atmosphere, housing representatives from 47 species who had achieved faster-than-light travel and peaceful coexistence. The chamber's designers had crafted something magnificent, with gravity plates that allowed each species to exist comfortably in their preferred orientation, and atmospheric zones that shifted seamlessly to accommodate different biological needs. Ambassador Elena Ross had walked these halls for 23 years. She was a woman of 52, with silver threading through her dark hair and eyes that had learned to hide disappointment behind professional courtesy. She had argued humanity's case in this chamber more times than she could count, had presented proposals that were ignored, had watched human achievements be credited to other species, and had smiled through it all because that was what diplomats did. Today would be different. She stood at the human delegation platform, a modest structure positioned in the lower tier of the chamber, where newer and less influential species were traditionally placed. Around her, the great powers of the galaxy conducted their business with the confidence of those who had never known real challenge. The Varinthians, crystalline beings of pure energy, debated trade policy with mathematical precision. The Keltar Dominion, whose empire spanned 200 systems, discussed military deployments with casual authority. The syndicated minds of Praxis, a collective consciousness housed in elegant mechanical bodies, calculated resource distribution with cold efficiency. None of them noticed when Elena activated her platform's speaker system. The Assembly's current chair, High Coordinator Velthus of the Varinthian Collective, finally acknowledged her with what might have been irritation. The human delegation requests recognition. Velthus's voice resonated through multiple frequencies, translated into something Elena's ears could process. Elena stood straighter. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind for 6 months, ever since the Earth government had made its final decision. Her voice was calm and clear, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. On behalf of the United Earth government and all human settlements, I announce our formal withdrawal from the Galactic Assembly. Effective immediately, all human personnel will be recalled from Assembly space. All human-operated facilities will be shut down and dismantled. All technology developed or maintained by human specialists will be removed. We thank the Assembly for the opportunity to participate in galactic affairs. We wish you continued prosperity. She sat down without waiting for a response. For several seconds, nothing happened. The chamber's ambient noise continued, conversations in a dozen languages flowing without interruption. Then someone laughed. It was a Keltar representative, a towering being with 6 limbs and bioluminescent patterns across its carapace. The laughter spread through certain sections of the chamber, not malicious exactly, but amused in the way one might chuckle at a child's tantrum. High Coordinator Velthus's form flickered with colors that indicated mild surprise. This is unexpected. May I inquire as to the reasoning behind this decision? Elena had prepared for this question. Humanity has served the Assembly faithfully for 150 years. During that time, we have requested equal representation 17 times. We have proposed collaborative research initiatives 34 times. We have applied for seats on major committees 41 times. Every request has been denied or indefinitely postponed. We have concluded that our talents are better utilized elsewhere. A syndicated minds representative, its mechanical voice devoid of emotion, interjected. Humans have been assigned appropriate roles based on their developmental stage. Newer species must earn advancement through centuries of proven contribution. Elena smiled without warmth. We have contributed more than you realize. You will understand soon enough. She gathered her materials and stepped off the platform. Behind her, the Assembly continued its business. Within the hour, the human withdrawal was being discussed as a minor administrative matter. The Varinthians calculated the economic impact as negligible. The Keltar Dominion barely noted it in their military briefings. The syndicated minds filed it under low-priority data. None of them understood what was coming. Admiral Marcus Chen commanded the extraction operation from the bridge of the UES Horizon, humanity's largest colony ship currently repurposed for the withdrawal. He was a career military officer who had spent 30 years working within assembly space, training joint forces, coordinating defensive networks, and quietly documenting everything he learned. His orders were simple but massive in scope: bring everyone home and take everything that belongs to us. The operation began in the outer territories and worked inward. Human engineers powered down the communication relay stations they had built and maintained for a century. These weren't glamorous installations, just practical networks that allowed instant communication across thousands of light-years. The aliens had paid for the materials, but humans had designed the systems, trained the operators, and performed every upgrade. Now the relays went dark, one by one, and the aliens would need to find their own solutions. Human medical staff evacuated the hospitals they had established on 47 worlds. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo supervised the closure of the largest facility on Keltar Prime, a hospital that treated 3 million patients annually. The Keltar administrators watched in confusion as human doctors packed their equipment and deleted their research databases. "You cannot simply leave," one administrator protested. "We have patients in critical care." Dr. Okonkwo kept her voice professional. "We trained your medical staff for 15 years. They know the procedures. The equipment we built stays, but the pharmaceutical formulas are human intellectual property. You'll need to develop your own medications. But that will take years. Possibly decades." Dr. Okonkwo paused at the door, looking back at the alien who had denied her research funding 7 times. "Yes, it will." She walked out without another word. Across assembly space, similar scenes played out. Human agricultural specialists left the terraformed worlds they had cultivated. Human teachers said goodbye to alien students who had genuinely appreciated them, even if the administrators never had. Human technicians shut down power stations, water purification systems, and waste management facilities that they had quietly maintained for generations. Commander James Rodriguez oversaw the dismantling of the Assembly Central Logistics Network. This was perhaps humanity's most significant contribution, though few aliens realized it. The network coordinated shipping lanes, managed supply chains, and optimized resource distribution across 200 systems. It was a masterpiece of efficient design that had taken human programmers 80 years to perfect. "Sir," a junior officer reported, "the syndicated minds are requesting we leave the logistics network operational. They're offering to pay for maintenance contracts." James shook his head. "The network runs on proprietary human algorithms. Without our programmers, it will function for maybe 6 months before cascading errors bring it down. They can build their own system." "Do they know how?" James smiled grimly. "They're the syndicated minds. I'm sure they'll figure it out." But he knew they wouldn't. Not quickly, anyway. The syndicated minds were brilliant at optimization, but the logistics network required intuitive problem-solving and adaptive thinking. It required the kind of messy, creative intelligence that humans excelled at and that purely logical minds struggled to replicate. The withdrawal continued for 3 months. Human ships formed long convoys, carrying 200 million people back across the border into human-controlled space. Some aliens noticed them leaving. A few even expressed regret. Most simply assumed replacements would come from somewhere, because replacements always had. On the final day, Elena Ross stood in her private quarters aboard the departing diplomatic vessel, looking at the data displays showing the completed extraction. Every human was accounted for. Every piece of human technology was secured or destroyed. The galaxy that humanity had served for a century and a half would now have to function without them. Her communicator chimed. It was Admiral Chen. "Last convoy just cleared the border. We're activating the defensive perimeter now." Elena watched as thousands of automated defense platforms powered up along humanity's border, creating an impenetrable barrier. Any ship attempting to cross would be warned once, then destroyed. Humanity was done being taken for granted. "Any final words for the assembly?" Admiral Chen asked. Elena thought for a moment. "No. We said everything that needed to be said. Let our absence speak for itself." She closed the channel and turned away from the view screen. Ahead lay human space, where new worlds awaited and where humanity would build something better. Behind lay the assembly, confident and oblivious, with no idea that their entire civilization was about to crumble. In the assembly chamber, High Coordinator Velthus reviewed the human withdrawal with minimal concern. The economic projections showed temporary disruption, nothing more. The Keltar military reported no strategic vulnerabilities. The syndicated minds calculated that replacement workers could be recruited from younger species within a decade. Everything seemed fine. The first system failure occurred 3 weeks later. It was small, barely noticeable, just a communication delay between two core worlds. Then another delay. Then a power fluctuation on a Varinthian station. Then a medication shortage on a Keltar colony. Small problems. Nothing that seemed connected. But they were connected. They were all connected. And humanity, now safely behind their borders, watched and waited as the galaxy began to understand exactly what they had lost. The collapse. The first death occurred 42 days after humanity's departure. Her name was Synthara, a Keltar child of 8 years by their measurement, suffering from a condition called crystal blood syndrome. It was a genetic disorder that caused her circulatory system to crystallize slowly, painfully. For 70 years, the condition had been completely treatable with a medication called hemostabiline, developed by human biochemist Dr. Rachel Chen in collaboration with Keltar physicians who had actually bothered to learn her name. The hospital on Keltar Prime had enough hemostabiline for 6 weeks after the humans left. Then the supply ran out. The Keltar doctors searched frantically for more, only to discover that every dose in assembly space had been manufactured in human facilities. The formula was filed under human medical patents, taken when humanity departed. Medical Director Krithos stood over Synthara's bed, watching her small body seize as her blood turned to crystal fragments. "We must contact the humans," he said desperately. "Surely they would not let children die." His assistant, a younger Keltar named Velthra, pulled up the communication logs. "We have sent 47 requests through the border stations, Director. All have received the same automated response: humanity is not accepting diplomatic contact at this time. Offer them anything. Money, resources, territory. We have, Director." They do not respond. Synthara died 3 hours later. She was the first, but she would not be the last. Within 2 months, the death toll from preventable diseases reached 8,000 across assembly space. Medications that had been commonplace for generations simply did not exist anymore, and no one knew how to make them. The Varinthian collective faced a different crisis, though equally catastrophic. Their entire civilization ran on energy, literally, as they were beings of living electromagnetic force. They required precise energy frequencies to maintain coherence, frequencies provided by resonance chambers that humans had designed and calibrated for the past century. Chief Scientist Orthanna noticed the problem when 3 Varinthians destabilized in the span of a single day, their energy patterns dissipating into random static. "The resonance chambers are drifting out of calibration," she reported to the High Coordinator. "Then recalibrate them," Velthus responded with what might have been irritation. Orthanna's form flickered with uncertainty. "We do not know how. The calibration process was always performed by human technicians. They used instruments we do not possess and methods we never studied because we considered it beneath our attention. The Varinthians tried to reverse engineer the calibration process. They were, after all, beings of pure energy with mathematical minds that could calculate quantum probabilities in nanoseconds. But the resonance chambers operated on principles that defied pure mathematics. They required intuition, adjustment by feel, and understanding of harmonic relationships that went beyond calculation. 300 Varinthians destabilized and died before they managed a crude calibration that barely maintained minimum safety levels. Their civilization, once numbering in the billions, began a slow decline as more chambers drifted and fewer Varinthians could be sustained. The syndicated minds discovered their vulnerability 6 weeks after the withdrawal. Their logistics network, that beautiful system that had coordinated trade and resource distribution across 200 systems, began producing errors. Small ones at first, a shipment of food arriving a day late, mining equipment sent to the wrong asteroid, colony supplies misrouted by a few light-years. Then the errors cascaded. Ships arrived at stations that had no record of their coming. Colonies ordered emergency supplies that never appeared. Trade routes that had functioned for centuries suddenly produced paradoxes where ships were scheduled to be in two places simultaneously. The network, built on human intuitive logic and adaptive problem-solving, was encountering situations its base programming could not handle. Prime Coordinator Nexus 7 studied the error logs with growing alarm. The system is degrading faster than our projections indicated. At current rates, complete network failure will occur within 4 months. Can we rebuild it? Another coordinator asked. Nexus 7 ran calculations for 16 seconds. To rebuild from first principles would require approximately 47 years. To reverse engineer the human systems would require access to human programmers who understand non-linear adaptive logic. We have neither the time nor the personnel. The food shortages began in the 3rd month. Assembly civilization had grown dependent on agricultural worlds that humans had terraformed and cultivated. These worlds produced crops designed to be nutritious for multiple species, grown in soil that humans had carefully balanced and maintained. The aliens had the land, the equipment, and even the seeds. What they did not have was the knowledge. Agricultural Administrator Kelthos of the Praxian commune stood in a field that should have been golden with grain. Instead, the plants were brown and withered, dying in soil that appeared identical to what it had been when humans tended it. We follow the documented procedures exactly, he said to his staff. Why is the crop failing? A young Praxian scientist named Cythera had been studying the human agricultural databases before they were deleted. She spoke hesitantly. The humans left detailed instructions for planting, watering, and harvesting. But I found references to something they called soil health that does not appear in the official records. There were mentions of microorganism balance, pH adjustment, nutrient cycling, and companion planting. The official records show only what they did, not why they did it. Kelthos felt something he had rarely experienced, genuine fear. Are you saying the humans had knowledge they did not document? Cythera shook her head. No, Administrator. I am saying they documented everything, but we only filed the parts we thought were important. There are references to hundreds of reports submitted to the Agricultural Board. Reports that were classified as excessive detail and archived without review. They searched the archives and found 12,000 reports spanning 80 years, each one explaining some small adjustment, some minor technique, some crucial understanding of how to keep the terraformed worlds productive. Reading them all would take years. Understanding them would take longer. The first famines began in the outer colonies. Then they spread to secondary worlds. Then to core systems. Species that had not known hunger in millennia learned what it meant to watch their children go without food. High Coordinator Velthis called an emergency session of the Assembly 4 months after humanity's departure. The chamber was darker now, with several lighting systems malfunctioning. The atmospheric controls struggled to maintain proper conditions, making some representatives uncomfortable in their zones. Half the translation systems worked intermittently, forcing some species to communicate through intermediaries. We must acknowledge the scope of this crisis, Velthis began, their energy form flickering with distress. Humanity was not merely a member species. They were the foundation upon which our modern civilization was built. A Keltar military commander, General Krithox, spoke with barely controlled anger. You told us humans were inferior. You said they were suited only for maintenance roles. You assured us their departure would be inconsequential. Velthis's form dimmed. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The Syndicated Minds representative, Nexus 7, provided cold statistics. Current projections indicate complete collapse of assembly infrastructure within 18 months. Estimated casualties across all member species, 4 to 6 billion. Economic damage, incalculable. Recovery timeline, unknown, possibly centuries. Surely the humans will help us, someone said. If they understand the magnitude of this disaster. We have sent 372 requests for assistance, Velthus replied. All have been denied or ignored. We sent ambassadors to their border. They were turned away. We offered them full council membership, seats on every committee, equal voting rights. They did not respond. What do they want? General Krithox demanded. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It was Ambassador Cythera, the young Praxian who had tried to understand human agriculture. She had recently been promoted when her predecessor died in a transport accident caused by logistics network failure. They do not want anything from us, she said quietly. That is what we fail to understand. Humans spent 150 years asking for respect, for recognition, for the opportunity to contribute as equals. We gave them none of those things. Now they have moved on. They are building their own civilization, one where they will never be taken for granted again. Then what are we to do? Velthus asked. Cythera looked around the failing chamber, at the dimming lights and the struggling atmospheric systems. We learn. We adapt. We do the work we forced humans to do for us. And perhaps, in a few generations, we become worthy of asking for their help again. But not now. Now we face the consequences of our arrogance. Beyond the impenetrable human border, Admiral Marcus Chen reviewed the daily intelligence reports with Ambassador Elena Ross. They sat in a comfortable office on the planet New Terra, humanity's thriving capital, where 300 million people lived in cities that gleamed with purpose and dignity. The assembly logistics network collapsed completely yesterday, Marcus reported. Their shipping lanes are in chaos. Estimates suggest millions will die from supply chain failures alone. Elena felt a familiar weight in her chest. She was not a cruel person. None of them were. Do you ever wonder if we should help them? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Every day. But then I remember the young human engineers who were told they were not intelligent enough to design systems they had already built. I remember the human doctors whose research was credited to alien supervisors. I remember the human students who were denied access to advanced education because their species was considered developmentally inferior. He looked at Elena directly. We tried helping them for 150 years. It did not make them respect us. It made them dependent on us while still despising us. Elena nodded slowly. She pulled up an image on her display, a message that had arrived that morning through an unofficial channel. It was from Cythera, the Praxian ambassador. The message was simple: we understand now what we lost. We do not ask for help. We ask only that someday, you remember we tried to learn. There are good ones among them, Elena said softly. There always were, Marcus agreed. But the good ones were never the ones in power. Maybe now they will be. On New Terra and the 37 other human worlds, life flourished. Human scientists pursued research without needing alien approval. Human artists created without being told their work was derivative. Human children learned in schools where teachers believed in their potential rather than their limitations. Humanity had taken everything they learned from the assembly, all the technology and knowledge gained from a century and a half of service, and built something remarkable with it. They had not sought revenge. They had simply walked away with dignity and built something better. In the collapsing assembly space, young aliens like Cythera began teaching a new generation. They taught about the invisible workers who had held civilization together. They taught about the price of arrogance and the value of every contribution. They taught that strength was not measured in military power or technological sophistication, but in character and the will to do what was right even when no one was watching. It would take the assembly centuries to recover, if they recovered at all. But perhaps they would build something wiser from the ruins. Perhaps they would learn that every person, every species, every voice had value. Perhaps they would understand that civilization was not built by the powerful giving orders, but by everyone working together with mutual respect. Humanity would not be there to see it. They had closed their borders and turned their eyes toward their own future. They had learned a hard lesson: you cannot force others to value you. You can only value yourself enough to walk away when they do not. And sometimes, walking away was the strongest thing you could do.